I spent a week in Hollywood for the first time. And when I did that, for some people, it was like I was a zoo animal. They're like, tell me about what you do. How many kids do you have? How does that work? What do you do for fun on the weekends?
Welcome to another CG garage where the monstrous moon shines. We're building new Hollywood like in 1971's prime. From Arthur's bold dreams to AI's fevered dream, where tech meets the silver or LED screen. Pixels and passion, our pipelines are known. Two hosts, one show, on a deadline postponed.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 539, featuring Ryan Kelsey, who is a vice president over at CenterGrid. And yes, you do know CenterGrid. They are a sponsor of the podcast, and we are very happy to have them on. In fact, they were the first sponsors of this podcast. And I really met Ryan through that. Actually, he works at CenterGrid, and we'll find out more about that. It's a data center that's based out in Ohio, and they've been doing a lot of interesting work trying to work into the visual effects industry. And he wanted to learn about visual effects. And so he just looked up visual effects podcast, and turns out that CG Garage was the number one podcast. And so he started listening, and he then invited me. He came to LA, invited me out to dinner with a bunch of other visual effects people. We got to chatting, and I really, really like him. He is just genuine. He is sincere, and he's super, super nice. And honestly, he has a great perspective on the industry as an outsider. And I really, really appreciate that, because that's a very important thing, to sort of look at how he sees the world and sort of understand what's going on. So really great guy. Like I said, he listens to the podcast all the time. He often texts me after it's done and has his thoughts about it. So he really gets involved, and so does his company. And so really happy to have him on. So thank you so much, Ryan, for being on and being able to help us with the podcast. I should note that this podcast was recorded over at HPA, which the Tech Retreat that happened a couple of weeks ago. Great event. Probably will be going next year, and I highly recommend you guys go check it out as well. If you're going to go to an event, the HPA event is a fantastic one to do. In terms of events, as of this recording, I will have done a talk over at the Television Academy at the AI Summit there. And I think it will be recorded. So if you happen to be a member of the Television Academy, you want to learn more about what we've done at VidViz over at Monstrous Moonshine, just go ahead and check that out. It will be recorded there. I will also be at NAB in April. So if you're going to NAB, give me a shout out. We'd love to see you there. I'll be with Chaos, of course, and we'll be talking about all kinds of things, including VidViz, virtual production, and all those other things. In terms of the podcast, you guys know what to do. If you're interested in checking us out, it's just cggarage.com is our website. We are now on YouTube, and all these videos are being put up on YouTube, and it's really great. So just go to youtube.com/ at CG Garage Podcast, at CG Garage Podcast. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. We would love to have you there as well. And if you have thoughts about the podcast, you, of course, can leave us a comment on YouTube, or you can just, leave us an email. podcast@cggarage.com is our email, podcast@cggarage.com. But for now, please enjoy episode number 539 with Ryan Kelsey.
This episode of CG Garage is sponsored by CenterGrid Virtual Studio. Wondering why you went to film school just to be stuck managing hardware life cycles? CenterGrid delivers end-to-end GPU-accelerated cloud workstations built specifically for VFX and creative production, with flat, predictable pricing and personalized support from people who actually get your workflow. Plus, CenterGrid is TPN Gold Shield certified, so your studio's security is locked down. Check out what Virtual Studio can do for your pipeline at cgvirtualstudio.com. This episode of CG Garage is sponsored by Kitbash 3D, one of our favorite tools and an essential tool for 3D artists everywhere. With the largest library of cinematic quality, production-ready 3D assets, Kitbash 3D ensures that your studio has the tools to build stunning environments quickly, efficiently, and at scale. Design detailed worlds in a fraction of the time without compromising on quality. Head to kitbash3d.com and use the code CGGarage at checkout for 10% off any kit. Again, that's kitbash3d.com, code CGGarage.
So this is your first HPA.
First HPA?
First HPA. How many industry, like you've sort of just, when did you start getting into the media and entertainment industry? Like what is, because you don't really come from that world, do you?
No, not at all. Typically more of a traditional technology person.
Yeah.
I've kind of built a whole career in that space.
So how did that all start?
Yeah. So if you want to talk about a freshie coming out of college and getting introduced in the world, I started in telco. So essentially kind of a regional telco where I'm from in the Midwest in Cincinnati, and then spent 13 years there. That evolved into a lot of managed services, managed hardware, kind of, your traditional, anything you would think technology wise and tech sales, we'll call it. Did a brief stint in some SaaS sales as well.
Sales as well. Okay.
That was a quick pit stop.
What kind of SaaS sales?
It was HR and payroll. So it was a completely different world, totally new network.
Yep.
Good experience for me, but I had to get back to my roots, and that's
tech.
where, yeah. And
why did you like tech?
it's a good question. I don't know. So I think, for a lot of kids, you go to college, and, the large majority of them don't know what they're going to do.
Right.
You end up in, going to school, trying to find anybody that'll employ you afterwards. And then you graduate and you're like, all right, well, these people were happy or were nice enough to give me a job. So I think I'm going to learn as much as I can about what they do in the industry they're in. That's kind of just where I landed.
Okay.
But what I can tell you that's changed or kind of, grown, because I think I've developed a little bit of a love affair, is that, I think you'll probably say something similar if anybody asks you, but it's always changing. So you're not really catching on to something and figuring it out. And then, that's kind of it. Now you're an expert. There's always something new to learn. There's always an advancement. And today, and obviously in the AI era, it's exactly where we're at.
Right.
What I learned today that I feel like is my competitive advantage, I can remember saying, whatever our competitive advantage is, it'll be commoditized in 1 to 2 years. Now it's a day or an hour or some kind of crazy iteration interval.
Right.
And, just keeps you coming back. It's a good drug.
Okay. Well, so telco was where you started, but then you got into data centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so when did that all?
Yeah. So CenterGrid, I go back quite a while, probably 7 or 8 years with CenterGrid, where they were a customer of mine for a while. And then,
so what were you doing when you were a customer? What was?
So we were delivering the fiber infrastructure and diverse connectivity into the CenterGrid data center.
Okay.
And then we did some kind of managed networking solutions in there as well.
Okay.
There was some VoIP that nobody likes to talk about because I couldn't wait to not sell VoIP for the rest of my life. But I kept in good contact with our COO now, is Chris Beard. And he's been a good friend and asked me to come over and help him out.
Sure.
And we've had a blast. So I walked in the door and I'm like, data center, virtualization, co-location. I understand that. Managed IT services, help desk, those types of things, more your traditional tech solutions. And all of a sudden we're kind of walking through the portfolio on day one, and he goes, oh, by the way, we didn't really talk much about this, but we do this thing in the film industry. And so we've got some connectivity in Hollywood, and there's a lot of visual effects studios that we do business with. And I'm like, okay. So as you can imagine, I had to.
So how was that? Like, how did they get connectivity with Hollywood out of Ohio?
Really good question. That was my question too.
Yeah.
And I think where it stems from is really the AI rush. And so if you go back 3, 4, 5 years ago, CenterGrid invested in a bunch of GPU infrastructure, and the thought was, hey, this AI thing is going to keep increasing.
So they had the foresight to see that they needed to buy a bunch of GPUs then.
Yep. And then through just connections, networking, we kind of landed in some really cool projects, some in the automotive space where creating, if you go to websites and you look at the car configurators for all the different types of combinations you could have. We actually patented a design that we delivered for a customer, and then ended up really cool project that we did where for a pretty large episodic launch that was like David Attenborough meets dinosaurs. So that entire series was built on the backbone of our virtual workstations.
Okay.
And that was kind of the segue into the visual effects space.
What is your geographic advantage?
Geographic.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're in Ohio, it seems to me like if I'm looking at the map of the United States, and I'm looking at connectivity, I'm looking at power, and I'm looking at all these different issues, like it seems like it's an advantage to be where you are, right?
It is. So, I mean, cost of living is a quick, easy one.
Sure.
So, most everything in the Midwest is a little bit cheaper than on the coast and in the Northeast and on the West Coast.
Power.
But I think we do have some unique advantages through, where our facility is located. We can capitalize on hydropower, which is a little bit cheaper and more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a small advantage, I would say, but more so it's just the expertise of doing it.
Right.
What we're finding is that, people have asked who do you guys compete with? And I'm like, yeah, there's people who do what we do as well. But frankly, we end up having more conversations competing against hyperscalers than anything else, which is not really who we're trying to take on. But there's a cost benefit and a value prop there that I think there's a pretty big appetite in the market for.
I think that's the thing, right? Like when people think of cloud storage, cloud compute, virtual workstations, all that stuff, they only think of like 3 companies, right? They don't think of you guys as, or they don't even know that you guys exist.
Sure.
Right. But I was kind of like, people asking me like, well, who's Centergrid? It's like, well, think of it like a boutique cloud company.
Exactly. We're like vigilantes.
Yeah.
We're out there.
But you do things a little bit different,
Sure.
right? So what do you guys do that's different?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because frankly, there's some really good companies that offer something similar where it's a smaller approach.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not gonna take down or do business with a Netflix or a Disney,
Right.
but more mid-sized studios out there. And I
Sure.
think our main differentiator is that our infrastructure is owned, so we have our own facility, and a lot of the the similar organizations that we see that do a lot of things we do are kind of, they have special relationships with either Amazon or Microsoft,
Right.
and they're using their GPU infrastructure to
For
power their
somebody.
workstations. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And I think what you lose there is a lot of control.
Right.
You don't have dedicated resources. There's a lot of shared resources. And so what we can clearly and confidently proclaim to our clients is that 100%, the infrastructure that we're providing you is ours and we're offering it to you. And you're not likely to have anybody set foot on the same hardware to where, you're able to do what you like. And I think that's it. The interesting piece is that from a consumption standpoint, we kind of give you your sandbox to play within.
Right.
And you can bang on the walls, but you're not going to reach this billing piece where you've got this out of control bill that shows up 30 days after you've done all this work. And you're like, wow, I didn't even realize how many
happens a
cycles I
lot.
was spinning up.
I've known companies, now granted they weren't very smart companies, but they didn't realize that and they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh no, we just spent $500,000
Mhm.
in 3 weeks and we didn't know that was how much it was going to cost us.
Yep. And it's interesting, and why we take so much pride in that because it's really in the fabric of who Centergrid is.
Sure.
As a partner, that we'll say, for our customers, we tend not to get caught up in the details of, that's what you're asking us is out of scope. So sorry, this is where we don't hand the baton off. We kind of stop right at the line of the job description.
Sure.
And, I'll give credit to the team because they embody this personality of, hey, if it's, the matter of a couple hours of work and
Right.
it solves a problem for the customer, let's get the job done.
Sure.
And I think we have, there's a lot of similarities that kind of transfer over into the media space, especially when you get into small VFX studios where, we like being invested in getting the project delivered on time just as much as the studio has the accountability and the responsibility of doing that.
Right.
We want to be an extension of that. And I think that too is a big piece of what we're bringing to the table. It's you'll get access to our engineering team the entire way. The whole goal is to get out of that hardware, get out of the IT business and stay in the creative and the storytelling business.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of what we're really trying to deliver for our customers is more around, we'll be the IT people that help you maintain quality, and then hopefully change the economies of it
Yeah.
and make it more affordable for you to deliver. And we always talk about just enabling them to swing way above their weight class.
But you also make it, like you give a proxy to the way people think about computers, right?
Yeah.
Like even your website is like, here's the different kinds of computers that you're renting. And it's just a bunch of spec. Now, granted, Amazon does a similar thing, for example, but you spec it out as like, here's a workstation that you would actually buy.
Yeah.
Right. And how you do that. So that's the way you sort of structure it.
Yeah, and we bucketize those options just to make it easy for people, because if it's like, well, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. I came to you. You tell me.
Yeah.
So we give those options. We want almost every single time we end up speccing it out in a custom way. That's, hey, we're kind of basing it off of this sized workstation that has this many cores, this much VRAM, and a few GPU access here, but the acceleration is only to a certain level. And people can kind of fit themselves into that, but then there's always some tweaking that goes on, and we're happy to do that. And that's kind of what we'd like to do.
Right. So what was your experience when you started to look into going into the media and entertainment space? Like what was your first thing that you discovered as you did this?
I did not realize just how much the financials were upside down. So the idea of, hey, operating on a fixed budget of, hey, here's the income that you'll get for this project.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. So I feel like there's been times where, what I just say, I'm like, well, sometimes we'll go out of scope and we'll blur the lines and we'll do things just to get the job done and do it well for the customer. At the same time, sometimes we feel like you can get taken advantage of a little bit.
Yeah, because it's like the pressure's trickling down to you guys.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. So it's a nice little dance.
So fixed bids was a weird one to you, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, no wonder, there's some financial struggles in the industry.
In the visual effects industry.
Yeah, correct.
Right. Because it's 3% margins is what we're operating.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they let go of everyone after the movie's done.
Right. Yeah. Which is, that was kind of that was a new realization for me, is the idea of, hey, we're not in the business of being able to sign 3-year contracts with service providers or with partners, because our projects are so inconsistent. And
did it make your job harder?
Did it make our job harder?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Or your job specifically?
Yeah, I think it makes profitability a fun little dance. But for the most part, I think what I like about that is that you have to deliver on the line every single day, and it keeps you coming back. I think if you talk in the traditional tech space, there's a tendency of, you get a new client, new vendor relationship. They sign a 3-year agreement. It's really exciting. All hands on deck right out of the gate. Onboarding is flawless. Everybody's happy. And then, 6 months go by. You kind of check in. You do your QBRs with them. Like, hey, everything's great. Honeymoon's been awesome. Right. And then as soon as things start to kind of drift apart and it's not the new thing that everybody's excited about anymore, there's a tendency, I think, for partners to take the relationship for granted. And hey, we've got you for 3 more years. So, you're kind of stuck. What I like about the way that the media industry tends to be, and that inconsistency of, the work that needs to be done and the resources to be able to fulfill the work. Right. The fact that it's interval and you can burst up and down from month to month, it keeps us on our toes, and it makes sure that we're keeping the product as top of mind as possible. And when I say product, I mean what these creatives are producing. Sure. We're just the infrastructure that it all sits on and that they're working on. But for the most part, it's all about what gets delivered and what we see on screen.
Right. Well, that's kind of a challenge though, right? I mean, it's like, that's the thing, right? So what were some of the most interesting projects that you see yourself getting involved with at this point?
I thought it was interesting. We were sitting at dinner after SIGGRAPH with one of our customers and, talking about, the coolest projects. And people were saying things like, well, we worked on Thanos for Marvel and, or for the Avengers movies. And there were a bunch of different things that were coming up. And like, these are massive titles, right? Sure. And massive franchises. But at the end of the day, it was every single person would say, yeah, but I remember Carlos was on that project. And then my friend over here was on that project. And we all kind of worked together. And that's like the really exciting piece about where we see kind of the industry going, is that the connectivity and the networking
Yes.
that we notice between, who knows who in town, really drives who's working on these projects. And that was
Yeah.
it, the work is really cool and the skill and the technology, but at the end of the day, everybody always comes back to the people.
That is cool. Yeah, it's true. And I'm glad you picked up on that because that's what it is. Like people care less if they worked on Thanos and more about who they were working with.
Hmm.
So
So yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. And as you've talked about, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit more over the last year or so,
yeah.
but, building these bespoke teams of the Avengers, you
Yep.
know, the best people, in the industry, you grab 5, 6 of them and
Right.
it's pretty incredible what you can create.
I think it's interesting, especially now, like we see, because something I've been sort of talking about in the last year or so is specifically how the film industry is going. Independent films are going to be bigger, right? Or not bigger. They're going to be way more of them, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily bigger. And that visual effects are not necessarily going away. They are going to be different. And you're going to see more people embracing bespoke
Mhm.
visual effects, meaning they're going to make their own visual effects and not necessarily hire another visual effects company. And you could there was a company called Uncharted Territories, right? Which is Volker Engel's company, and essentially anything that Independence Day director, what's his name? Blanking.
We need Daniel here.
Yeah, no, he's the German guy. Anyway, completely blanking. Anyway, Volker did in Uncharted Territory, and what he did every time he would do a movie is he would rent a new facility, buy a bunch of computers. When the movie was done, he would sell everything. Right?
Yeah.
And the whole company would just shut down to the point where he had no overhead between movies, and all the computers just got sold. Sometimes they sold it back to the people who worked on those computers. Like you can buy your computer for a quarter of the price because it devalued or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just this was before cloud was a big thing. But in a sense, that feels like I got a team. I'm about to make a movie. I'm hiring 5, 6 artists to do all the visual effects, or maybe 20 or 30 or whatever. And it's like, I feel like, oh, I can just make my little studio on the cloud with you guys much easier because you guys will handle all of the setting that up.
Yeah. Well, that's the perfect piece because, Netflix just had an awesome presentation on
Right.
that.
Tell me.
The cloud collaborative ecosystem that they're building at Netflix is spectacular.
Sure.
But the challenge is like as great as that is, and as much as it enables their workforce, not every single shop on the
We don't all work for Netflix.
on the globe have the resources and the means to deliver something like that.
Right.
And so you kind of need partners
Right.
that can take the heavy lifting off of your shoulders, whether it's you don't have the cash to invest in your own infrastructure or the wherewithal or the know-how
Sure.
to manage something like that. We've had customers say, we flat out need to get out of the hardware game because our office is too hot. We have so many GPUs pumping in the back room and we're not managing the cooling as efficiently or effectively as we should. And frankly, we just don't have any business doing this. We need to get out.
I've been there. I was at a company called SpeedShape years and years ago, and we basically bought computers, and then we had a rack of 20 or 30 computers we've been using as our small local render farm. And we had to put it into a rack. And then it's like, oh, we don't have enough power. I had to call an electrician, get all that done. Oh my God, this thing is so hot. Oh, so loud. Okay, now we're going to put it into this enclosure. Oh, it's so hot in that enclosure, everything's overheating. Now we got to do the AC. It became really expensive just to have 20 computers running.
It's insane. Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely. And, and I think it definitely helps because those are one of the last things that pop into your head when you're like, all right, well, we're going to buy all this gear and we'll set it up in this closet here, but you don't really think about, what's the cooling that's needed to make sure that these things don't overheat and crash on me.
Right.
And, the small details like that are the last thing that you're ever.
Or it
ever
burns
putting in.
up, or you got to pay for that.
Exactly.
And all.
Yep.
And back in the old days, used to, there was rental houses that would rent you computer racks that would be on wheels that would show up, and it was just like wires everywhere. It was bad.
Yeah. So I think that's been what's been really fun for us. I think we know that there's a hunger and an appetite in the industry, in the market for smaller shops to outsource. But at the same time, who are you outsourcing to? Is
Right.
it a hyperscaling behemoth? that, is very focused on, their top 50 customers,
Sure.
or is it smaller partner? And that's where I think our boutique approach to supporting customers in our fashion, I think is really kind of our right to win, and we're fulfilled in it. So I think that's the best part, is the relationships.
Sure.
We take those very seriously, and sometimes, it sounds like a little kumbaya, but at the end of the day, I mean, you talk to anybody within our organization, and they're like, oh yeah, they use first names of all the customers. They know people 3 and 4 people deep on the teams.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's the difference of saying, hey, call the support number, or call Kyle, or call Brandon on our team.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really what keeps customers coming back, and that's what keeps the referrals coming in.
It's also, coming from, you came from big telecom, et cetera. That was probably something that was interesting, that you just go to this conference here. Everyone knows each other.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, call Paul, call Vlatto, call this guy.
Yeah, that's why we're here. I mean, everybody has been super welcoming,
Right.
very, very open to just have conversations about, what do you do? What do you do?
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Here's where we struggle. Educate me on this piece. Okay, it's
Right.
probably not a great fit, but you know what? I was just talking to somebody 10 minutes ago.
Right.
Let me go track them down, and you two need to meet.
Right.
And these are the places we want to spend our time.
It's also interesting that you guys are taking your GPUs and using it towards an industry that's struggling financially, as opposed to putting them all into AI, where people will pay top dollar.
Yeah.
So how do you compete? How do you what is that decision that allows you to say, yeah, it's good to go to VFX. It's good to help these guys, as opposed to, we can just make a lot more money supporting some AI training somewhere.
I think some of that. So, I mean, let's call the elephant in the room. If you see, competitors on the other side of the table that are Microsoft and Amazon and Google,
Right.
like, we're the little guy.
Sure.
And so we're going up against Goliath, and in some way, shape, or form, VFX is in that position a lot too.
Right.
And I think just from how the relationships and, our journey has landed us with some clients in that space,
Sure.
we've learned more about how that industry works, what the business model looks like. And I think me more as a business person than a technologist,
Mhm.
I just find myself wanting to figure out, what is the model? How can you be successful in this space? Because there's magic on screen that everybody's creating.
Right.
And then we start to find out, well, some of these people aren't even making any money. Some of them are closing their doors and sending their people home.
Some of them win Oscars and go bankrupt within 2 weeks.
Exactly. The Life of Pi stuff, it blows your mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And so I think we take that kind of as a badge of honor to say, hey, like, who can we link arms with
Sure.
and lift up? And it's not a holier than thou thing by any means, but it's almost, we're inspired by the work and the passion in this industry. And I think with VFX, we want to see those companies succeed. We want to see them. They're probably, I don't know if one day from now things shift where they have more power, but or more power than the large studios right now. But I think we certainly want to give them all the ammo they can, and remove as many burdens as possible, so that they can, at the very least, be a profitable company and grow, right? Because that's what they all want to do.
Okay. Well, obviously, we talked about the big companies. A lot of people are probably in the industry are familiar with big companies. They know at least what it would take to go to Amazon. They know at least what it would take to go to all these places. Besides the fact that they can call you, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
How else do you differentiate yourself from those guys?
Well, it's not a sexy one, but it's one of the most important ones. So if you look at, I think Amazon or AWS prices increased 15% this year. I think Microsoft was somewhere in the realm of 6 or 7%.
Right.
We haven't had major price hikes. We try to be, an economical partner and an alternative.
Right.
So I think from a personal relationship, expertise, IT support, white glove standpoint,
Sure.
that's there. From a cost standpoint, we're significantly lower in most instances.
Wow.
And then I think the flexibility factor of,
But what about, let's talk about pricing, because some people may not be familiar. Let's
Sure.
say if you're a filmmaker who's like, okay, I want to start a studio on the cloud. What is it actually going to cost me? Is there a cost of how much you pay per week, per month? And then, there used to be a cost per egress or ingress.
Yeah,
all that
definitely.
stuff. So explain all of that so
I
people
know.
have an understanding.
So
of that.
good question. So if you're thinking, you're like egress fees. So we don't have any of those. That's another benefit.
Explain what that is.
So
because
egress fees, Obviously, or not obviously for some.
Right.
So egress fees, meaning data transfer fees for pulling things in and out of your cloud environment. There are costs associated with that in the the hyperscaling environments.
Right.
For us, we own the entire facility. We own all the infrastructure. We'll let you download, upload as much as you please, and
not charge
no
you for
additional
it.
cost. Yeah, we don't.
So
plan
you're
to charge
only
for it.
charging for the time that you rent the computer.
Correct.
And how about storage?
Storage is baked in to it, and
baked
it
into
depends.
your
There's
cost.
bucket size. Yeah.
Right.
So
So you
storage is a
say if I
piece of
want
this.
more storage, you'll pay more for it, but it's a fixed cost.
Yep, absolutely. Each workstation is going to come with a certain allotment of storage, but a lot of times if you're a team and you have large projects you're working on, you may want a shared storage opportunity, and we can definitely outfit that for you and customize it however you need.
Right.
But from a cost standpoint, we're not the ones that you're going to go to our website and click a button and say spin up 15 machines,
Right.
and then bang, there they are.
Right.
Frankly, we don't plan to be, and as of right now, we don't want to be. We do want to be the ones that say, tell me about what you're working on.
Right.
Tell me about the challenge that you're running into. Okay. What if we build you a machine that was spec'd out with X amount of CPU, had all this VRAM, has storage, and has a rendering capacity? Would this kind of fit the need? And they say, yeah, okay. Well, we're going to kind of hold your hand through this process.
Right.
And then any snag, anything that you're like, hey, I'm kind of running into a wall here. We may need to open up a few things or twist a few knobs to tweak it in just the right way. And we want to do that so that we know, all right, now we're off to the races. We've got the check mark from the customer. This fits the need.
Right.
And then we're kind of just on call from there.
Okay. So that makes it much easier.
Mhm.
And now what about, one of the things that always been touted about using cloud computing is that it's really great to scale up and it's really great to scale down.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about scaling up and scaling down and like how much leeway is like, oh, are you renting per month, per week, per day, per hour, per minute? Like,
Yeah. We have done per week
right.
projects before. Most commonly it's per month.
Okay.
And I think what I like about that, if I even sit on the other side of the desk, as a customer, it doesn't matter how much you use it and how many hours. You could share workstations. So if you have different shifts of people or people who like to work more at night, then you can kind of find some economies of scale there or find some savings through collaboration. But at the end of the day, it's the best part about it is it's predictable.
Okay.
So you can burst up and down as you bring on new projects. If you know you're going to have to hire 25 people, you need 25 machines for them to do the work.
Yep.
Hey, this is going to be a 6-month project. At the end of those 6 months, we don't need these 25 people anymore. They
Yep.
know it. They're okay with it. Send them back to the talent pool. We'll take all the resources back. I think in some larger instances, we may have minimum commits or say, a customer may say, we're not going to dip below this amount of employees ever, but we will scale up, to, we don't know how high, and then may go back down fairly quickly. So having the ability to go up and down month to month adds a ton of flexibility and makes it possible to be able to afford something like that.
Right. What about render farms?
Yeah. So those are available too. We've had customers come to us and they say, I really just want access to render nodes.
Right.
So
And that's a different kind of spec that you would do for
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. And, this is, I think, where my youth in the space will start to come out because, as you start to get deeper into render farms and nodes and CPU counts and VRAM and all these types of things, I start to lean over and introduce people to my engineering team. But,
Right.
but yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't even need to be a virtual instance or a virtual workstation per se.
Right.
If you just need rendering capacity and access to the GPUs, we've got some, some custom solutions we've designed for
And you
customers
do
like that.
some where you do no GPUs either.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If it's just CPU based, that's no problem at all.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. What's been some of the most interesting projects? You mentioned the dinosaur project, but you guys work with some other really interesting customers as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah, one of our favorites. So we're really good friends with the folks over at Boxell Studios.
Mm-hmm.
We've really enjoyed kind of learning their model, and I think there's I'll have to introduce you to Freddie this week because I think he got here today.
Okay.
But they're doing some really cool stuff where they seem to be, I don't know if ahead of their time, but as I talk to them, they're always thinking forward.
Okay.
This was 3 or 4 years ago at SIGGRAPH where Andres walked over to, I think, our booth and was like, tell me about this in 2 seconds. And like, we kind of just described cloud-based virtual workstations. You guys have GPUs? Yeah. This is what I want to do.
Right.
I have all this infrastructure that is going to age out and I need to get rid of it. It's been a really cool relationship. Projects they've worked on from Superman and Lois and a lot of the Avengers films. Freddie works on some dark stuff.
Right.
That, maybe he'd be a good guest for you in the future, but
Sure.
they're probably our favorites. And then we have, a couple resellers that we work with out of Japan, out of, South America. I don't know. I think you've met Eric Pinkel on our team.
I have.
He's
everyone knows Eric.
Everyone knows Eric. So the coolest thing about the Voxel relationship is that we're at SIGGRAPH this year and it just came out for the first time. Like, the only reason we talked to you guys at SIGGRAPH 3 or 4 years ago is because we bumped into Eric, or one of our friends bumped into Eric at India Joy the year before and told us about CenterGrid. And so we were like, oh yeah, that triggered something. And so we decided to stop at your booth. And just the serendipity of all of that was just outrageous.
Yeah. That's awesome. How many clients have you gotten? Like, how did you feel the growth has happened at this point?
The growth, I think it's been steady, but it's been slow. I think what we get the most of is we get interest from really small studios. So, you'll get, in some really cool instances, it's maybe a customer that was started as a high-ranking VFX soup at a larger studio in Los Angeles.
Sure.
They don't want to stay in Los Angeles. They're from Atlanta. They moved to Atlanta and they start a business with, their partner, and then they hire 3 of their friends, and then they just start building from there. And that a lot of times ends up at our front door. So we get that, and then some freelancers. So that happens quite a bit, which is,
you see freelancers too, right?
Yeah. And we're happy to take on all that work because frankly, we see it as just putting our chips behind so many different people. Some of them are going to take off and some of them aren't. But if we can support all of that, then I think the greater good is knowing that the creativity is fueled. And they have the.
I can imagine being a freelancer and saying, "Oh God, I got this big project. It's like I need a render farm."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think the growth has started to pick up over the last year or so, especially as AI has become so much more of a topic.
Okay.
In the industry.
How has AI affected you guys specifically?
It's been a blast because everybody wants to talk about it, but I don't think anyone knows what to talk about.
Well, what are they doing?
Yeah, exactly. I think that is still the question.
Right.
What are you actually doing? And so I think it's been interesting. I think at this, at the HPA, you have people just saying, here's what we're doing with AI.
Right.
And it's like everyone else is just like on the edge of their seat. They're like, oh my gosh, a use case for AI instead of a general pie in the sky.
What was one of our friends, Farouk, he was kind of joking around with us today. We work with him. He's at the Scope, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make an NFT of a Gaussian splat for the metaverse." And it's like, It's like, but unfortunately, that's a lot of people. They don't actually think like just making a thing, making a movie, making stuff like that. So
yeah, there's definitely there's a difference between like system AI and like system integrations and automations internally, and then Gen AI. And I think
are people doing generative stuff on your
not particularly. And frankly, like we're in the AI world, we don't ask too many questions about what they're going to be doing.
Sure.
We're just happy to be the safe haven for them to land.
Yeah.
Because honestly, going back to kind of if you trust a public cloud with your AI experimentation, you don't know what life form these workloads are going to take on. And that can get really, you can get in over your skis pretty quick and end up with a fat bill right in your lap. And I think when they come to us, they know, okay, well, I know I'm not going to be able to hurt myself financially by going into this, but we'll be able to experiment and explore and try things in a controlled environment and with a partner that I know I can trust because, they're going to kind of guide me and say, hey, just so you know, you guys are really hammering this thing right now. You may want to look into some more memory, or some more GPUs, throw those into the mix if you're really trying to do, what you guys are planning on. So there's a lot out there, and it's fun just to be in the conversations. And I think it's still to come. Like I still think that there's a lot for me to figure out. I still think for our team is still learning because we don't claim to be the AI experts.
Right.
We just want to build a facility that is there with the infrastructure to support AI workflows and AI growth.
Right.
And I think that's where we're focused, and just making sure the cooling, the power, the GPUs, and all the infrastructure is there, and able to support the requirements from a lot of these companies coming to us.
Well, what's been some of the more interesting? I mean, you mentioned obviously the cost of what the cost of or the profitability of visual effects. But what about some of the other things? Have you seen? How do they compare to other technology companies? Like
Mhm.
very demanding? Do they ask a lot more of things? Or
I don't know. I think it's similar in
really?
any
Okay.
industry. I think it all is dependent on your relationship and who the person is at the
Right.
core. We try really hard to do business with good people
Sure.
that we not that we always agree with, but we believe in their humanity, and we trust them, to have, an ethical bone in their body that,
Sure.
we're proud to do business with them. And I think just as much in VFX, you can work with people who are, they take other people for granted, or they're willing to step on, people below them to be a means to their end. And that's not super exciting for
Right.
us. We spend a lot of time, meeting people in forums like this,
Sure.
and understanding, where do
But
we
do they
gravitate?
push the envelope for you guys? Are you doing things like, oh, we never thought to do that, or they?
Yeah, the coolest part is it's collaborative. They come here and they'll say, "Hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
Can you guys do this?" And a lot of times we're like, "I don't know, let's try." And I think
Okay.
that's what makes it fun, is that, we've got all these sandboxes and test environments going on where existing clients are still doing all the production,
Right.
but on the side, we're kind of working on these mini projects with them, and we're trying to it's proof of concept for us just as much as it is for them.
Right. So there is like that's kind of interesting and cool to be able to do those type
Yeah.
of projects, right?
It is neat. So I wouldn't say that they're too demanding,
Okay.
but they do push the envelope. But that's a good thing.
Right.
I think we're just as eager to figure out what's next, just as everyone else is.
Do they push your GPUs pretty hard?
Yeah, I think they do sometimes. Like, I've been in the data center before, where if you pump up all those GPUs to where they're humming
Yeah.
all
I'm
at once,
sure
I mean,
pretty
it's
loud.
like a jet engine in there. Like,
Yeah.
it could maybe blow you backwards, and you definitely can't have a conversation in there.
I've never been inside a proper data center. What is that like?
It's not as sexy as
No.
it probably seems in Mission Impossible, where they like tightrope down, and
Yeah.
they're
Is it like the scene in Silicon Valley when they're walking through those hallways and they just
yeah, I think kind of. I mean, sometimes it seems very non-glamorous,
yes.
but it usually is very impressive. For me, what I think is helpful, though, is that everything you talk about in IT and that's technology driven is so abstract. I mean, I remember even talking about fiber connectivity and just being like, "Oh, you got this huge pipe that's connecting your business to the cloud."
Mhm.
And everybody's like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And I would draw it on a piece of paper, and I would make it look like so powerful and so strong. And then you go see this fiber strand, and it's like this tiny little piece of spaghetti, and all these little glass strands that are strung together. And
Right.
it puts a lot of things in perspective. You're like, okay, so this wire is attached to this box with this blinky light, and they all now work together and communicate in a way that this movie lives here. And it's so wild to me. But I think when you can go see the data center and
Yeah.
see really what is powering all of this really cool work, it puts a lot of things in perspective for you, and you have a new appreciation for everything that's out there.
What was, besides the, dealing with the specific challenges of your job, like what are some of the other things that you found exciting about the visual effects industry or the media and entertainment industry?
I mean, I'm a consumer, right?
So tell me about that. What are some of the things you like to consume?
I mean, one day it could be a Taylor Swift documentary. Another day we talked about Schindler's List at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Who doesn't want to watch Schindler's List now? You said this the other day, but no, I mean, I'll watch anything.
Sure.
I really like.
So will I.
I can zone out in an action movie with The Rock or Mark Wahlberg any day of the week, but I like to invest time in what was the one we were just talking about with Leo, his latest one?
Oh, One Battle After Another.
Yeah, One Battle After Another, Sinners, love Sinners.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll watch Chinatown and a remake of Vacation back to back.
yeah. Now, if you put Rudy on,
Rudy,
when
that's a good one.
even if you just put on the part where he gets carried off the field,
Yeah.
I'll cry immediately. It's like on command.
Isn't that good to cry on a movie?
It's good for you. Yeah,
It's good
absolutely.
for you. Yeah. So why did you want to, like, you obviously listened to the podcast. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved, like what got you interested into the podcast.
In the podcast, oh man. So I knew that once I got into, I kind of took on a new role, new company.
Right.
Thought I had, most.
How long have you been in the company now?
This is about a year and a half.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yeah,
really
so
new.
relatively new.
Yeah.
And once I learned kind of the industries and the circles that we run in, and I knew I didn't have that in the bag.
Right.
I was like, all right, I've got to brush up on this, and I need to catch up fairly quickly. And I had people like you or customers who were like, all right, here's what we'd recommend. Go watch Light and Magic, read Scott Ross's book, things like this that really give you a pretty good crash course.
Sure.
And I didn't really have a choice, but it's fascinating. And so it was really easy. One of the things that I did, it's like, I think this was in, the week one of starting at a new company. I think I just typed in VFX podcast. What do you know? The number one VFX podcast popped up called the CG Garage. And I just started ripping through as many episodes as I could of that.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I started to recognize some of the lingo and the jargon. And
was it helpful?
It was very helpful. Are you kidding me? Well, because I think that you can study so many things from a textbook, even in technology. Like going back to traditional networking, like between Cisco's CCNA, can I, study how all this stuff works? A lot of times it's just start and just dive in.
Right.
And then pay attention to everything that happens from here on out. There's always going to be somebody who has the history and the tribal knowledge.
Sure.
And they know more than you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, just investing in it and having conversations and being open to other points of view, challenge the status quo, keep pushing.
Right.
It's amazing how much you start to learn. But then once you start to learn, you start to build these opinions.
Right.
And then once you have opinions and a stance on things, it gives you a little bit more confidence to go into these conversations saying, here's what I recommend you do. Here's what I think you should do. And, it's been a fun ride.
I think it's interesting, because I've tried to make this podcast very casual. There was a big reason why I tried to make it casual is because I didn't have time to make it not casual. Right. I basically have enough time to have a conversation with you like this. Right. And that's a great amount of commitment. And it seems to be like if that people like to be a fly on the wall and listen to a conversation. Right. So that's kind of the fun part. But I don't have time to do a bunch of the other stuff that goes on with trying to produce something really big. And so that's proved to be pretty good. But what's interesting is like, I asked someone else, I was like, well, there's people like your podcast and then there's things like Corridor Crew, right?
Yeah.
And I said, right. And I was like, that's very popular. Like way more people know Corridor Crew than they know this podcast. But the difference between Corridor Crew and my podcast is that I've actually worked in the industry.
Yes.
They have not. Right? They're very good about talking about the industry and talking about this and making it accessible to the general public. They've got the YouTube algorithm and stuff down great. And they invite lots of great guests because they know they're going to get a lot of views on their thing, but they don't actually understand. I try to get down to like the conversation, anything from what film you make to like, what's the speed of your fiber? Like I try to cover all of it.
Yeah, I think, especially, over the last 6 months or so for you, I've noticed that the scope expands, kind of the breadth of the dialogue.
Yeah. I hate to say it. I was getting a little bored with the podcast. You probably could tell. But I was like, I've done this because I've been doing it for like 12 years. I was like, I got to do something fresh. I got to have different levels of conversation, make it more current, right? I think that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, and I think you're experimenting in all the right places. Reason being is because I can think of the times that you've had James on with Daniel and three of you just riff on a topic for an hour and a half. And those are some of the best episodes. As much as I love some of these really great guests that you bring on.
Sure.
It's fascinating to hear their stories, fascinating to hear their opinion, their perspective.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, like, people are thinking in their head, like, well, I have all these questions, or like, what's the news of the day? And,
Right.
and then kind of just having a roundtable, because I think walking out, we're 2 days in for this event that we're at this week. And kind of to this point, I think my favorite part has been a roundtable at breakfast with
Right.
9 strangers and one topic in the middle, and everybody just kind of sharing their perspective and their viewpoint and their experience with that topic.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love sitting, in a huge auditorium with this huge LED screen
Right.
and really impressive speakers, and, you learn a lot from there, but like, it's nothing compared to rubbing elbows with people who are knee deep in the industry every day.
Yeah.
And just kind of being confident enough to be a little vulnerable and be like, I don't know what to do about this problem.
Right.
What are you doing? What are you seeing?
Right.
That's an interesting point. I would add this to that. And then it's
Right.
just amazing. You walk away from an hour conversation with 9 strangers and you're like, that was worth the price of admission, I think.
Well, that just to keep people in perspective what that is, because not everyone necessarily has gone to HPA. They have a breakfast event where they have a bunch of tables. Each one holds about 9 people, and there's topics for every table. So you have a host that says, I'm the host of this. I'm going to talk about cloud. I'm going to talk about stereo conversion. I'm going to talk about digital humans. I'm going to talk whatever it is. You can pick your subject you want to do. You become the host, and then you get up in the morning, you go to breakfast, and you look at it as like, oh, look. Oh, yeah, digital humans. That's table number 26. Okay. And you get your lunch or your breakfast and you go sit at table 26 to talk about that subject.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah. What was the table you went to today?
Honestly, I couldn't find the number of the table that I was looking for. And I said, are you guys going to talk about AI today? Because I want to hear what everyone else thinks.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, we're going to do that. And I was like, how many of these other tables are going to talk about? They're like, there's probably 7 or 8 that are going to touch on it.
Sure.
We'll probably mostly land in a similar place
Right.
at each of them. So it was a little general, but it was the guys from Adobe were hosting. And I thought, Darren was his name. He was fantastic.
Oh,
Did
yeah,
a great job facilitating. And he kind of like was pulling. He made sure there were no passive participants. Everybody was active, and he was always pulling more and going into level
That's
deep.
awesome.
So maybe he should be on the podcast.
Well, the other thing the other thing that happens, like for me, I was of course late, so I just sat out at a table that had a seat. I didn't know what the table was talking about. Ended up talking about adding digital fingerprints to digital files to track them for different purposes, whatever's going on, and how do you deal with that in AI world where every pixel is different, and how you have to.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh wait, this is fascinating, and like figuring that out, and how people do that. So I thought it was great. I think just having conversations that you don't expect, are really cool.
What was the biggest nugget that you pulled out of it?
Oh, out of that, they were talking about so we had this conversation back in the old days when people cared about DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff like that. There used to be a thing called region coding. Do you remember region coding?
No.
So region coding is like for like US is region 1, Europe is region 2. There's like probably 10 or 12 regions around the world. So that when you go, and this is weird, but when you would buy a DVD, it would only work in that. You have the player that's region 1, you have a DVD that's region 1. You can't put a region 2 player DVD into a region 1. So you can't
Get
transfer.
out, really?
No, yeah.
No kidding. I had no idea.
So that there was this whole thing. So people would like go on the internet and buy region free things. So you can buy your bootleg Chinese thing and then put it into this thing and then it'll all work, right? So it was all this system. But for the MPAA, once they make a movie and they make all the region code, they want to know where their movie got ripped off and put on the internet. And so what they do for the movie, they'll pick a scene. Let's say like this wall behind me right now. They will look at a pattern on the wall and they would change the pattern on the wall digitally to be a different pattern for different regions. So that when you go, it's like, well, where did it rip off? They go to that scene, they look at the wall. It's like, based on this pattern, that comes from region 1. So it's all like.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. I was like, and it's like, oh yeah, remember that? We used to do that. And so just these ideas of what to do. But with AI, every pixel is different, right? Even if you say, use this, but I want to make this, like you changed everything. So it's not like it's the same, right?
Yeah. And that's the part for me, the doom and gloom with AI, especially in the creative and the entertainment industry, media, kind of at scale. I understand where the doom and gloom comes from. I really do. You see the headlines of,
What do you
X-
mean by what do you feel is a
I would say
doom?
the fear of this is going to eliminate jobs. I
Okay.
understand that. But at the end of the day, if I put a prompt into Suno
Uh-huh.
and I try to make this a video, it's not going to touch anything that you put in. Like, I think your breadth of expertise, the history, the skills that you develop, your eye for what makes a good scene,
Right.
your ability to tell a story. I don't have any of that. And
Sure.
I might be able to get something that's passable at 50% of the quality.
Right.
And people would be like, that's really cool that you can do that. But if somebody like you or anybody who's a professional and has been doing this for 25 years plus,
Right.
the output is going to be ridiculously higher quality.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm gonna put on my Scott Ross hat for a second.
Good,
There's a-
challenge me, Scott.
There's 1,000 or more people working on, let's say, Avatar, right?
Mhm.
Of those 1,000 people, not all of them will create something
Yeah.
amazing. There's actually a very small percentage of people who are good, which are the people who oversee everyone else and say, no, fix this and fix that, fix
Mhm.
this and fix that. And that's how it ends up being good.
Yeah.
So just the fact that you work in visual effects doesn't necessarily mean you're an amazing artist. It means you know how to work the system and you know how to submit your files and you know how to do your thing.
Correct.
So that sort of changes a little bit in some ways. And honestly, you can look at the other way. It's like, why does it take 2,000 people to make a movie and cost $500 million to make Avatar?
Mhm.
Maybe that's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's tough. That's a great point, and you're right to push back on what I said,
Right.
because it's a challenge and it becomes scary for people who work at really large organizations because they
Right.
can do probably the same amount of output for less work, and it depends what's the market. Do they
Right.
need a certain level of content or a certain amount of content? But for, maybe a smaller studio, the time has never been better for them to charge, because
Oh, absolutely not.
now you can scale up and you're enabled to do so much more than you've been able to do in the past.
If you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've always, a lot of people is like, you've always wanted your opportunity to look good or
Mhm.
to do the things, but you never had the money, the infrastructure, or whatever.
Yeah.
And now you do.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, absolutely. It reminds me. So, John Waters, the director, John Waters.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I was telling the story, like he was talking about how, they had these DV cameras back in the early 2000s, and it was the first time they had these DV cameras that could do HD, and it was available to the general public
Mhm.
for the low fee of $2,000, which was high, but before you could never afford a camera. Cameras used to cost $50,000, $100,000, right? Now, so on $2,000, you have HD. That's all you had. You didn't have anything else. It was still basically a camcorder.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I could make a movie with this, right? And they asked John Waters, what do you think about the fact that anyone can buy one of these cameras and make a movie now? And he goes, well, I think you got to think of John Waters, right? He shot his movies on like Super 8, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, I think it's great that everyone can make a movie. It's like, not everyone should,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
If you give John, the worst camera on the planet, he's going
He's
to
still going to
pretty
make
darn
something good.
movie.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like, so it's like, I think that's the important thing is like people need to think about what that is and sort of make these great movies. So I think that there's responsibility. The democratization is really great, but it's
Mhm.
also going to prove people like, anyone can buy a bicycle doesn't mean they're going to be,
Right.
Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm optimistic about it. What I think becomes the interesting topic is more around, the governance of it.
The governance. Tell me
Yeah.
about what you
So
mean by
just
that.
just thinking, around IP rights and protection and copyright infringement, and we talked about that a lot at this roundtable this morning.
Sure.
And I kind of brought up how Bob Iger was almost he zagged when everyone zigged because everybody was upset about, finding their characters out in AI videos that are just getting thrown all over the internet. And
Sure.
Disney kind of went the other way and was like, well, what if we just let them do it? And then they'll still be in love with our characters. We'll remain relevant. It'll be actually a strategic move for us.
Right.
Because if everyone else won't let them, but we'll let them use Disney characters, maybe it's an advantage for us. And just a lot of people still trying to figure it out, even at the highest level.
Yeah. I think that it's the problem is that the Hollywood has spent so long and have so many lawyers with degrees on protecting IP. Their instinct is to say no.
Yeah.
No. Right?
I don't blame it. It's their right. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not saying they shouldn't say no. So,
right.
But yeah, it's interesting, you know, and you call ethics into it. There's certainly, you know, some negative connotations that, you know, AI can bring with it.
Sure.
And, you know, it comes down to, you know, the person behind the keyboard. You know, what are their intentions? Are they pure, or are they?
Well, to me, the thing that bothers me is that, honestly, I think what's hurt the most, and we see it every day, is social media. Social media has just been destroyed by AI stuff, right?
Yeah.
Someone had there was a thing, I think it was on John Oliver. They were like, someone says, Pinterest is dead.
Yeah.
Like Pinterest is like, I used to do gardening and I go to Pinterest to get ideas. There's not a single real image on Pinterest anymore.
Really? Okay.
Not a single thing.
Pinterest isn't one that I frequent a ton, but I've noticed it everywhere else.
Conceptually, like, you think about, like, you used to go to Pinterest like, oh, I'm interested in, you know, macrame or whatever. It's like, none of it is real.
Yeah. Probably the first time that I saw an Instagram reel of like a guy going to the bathroom and a bear breaking through his window.
Right.
Somehow didn't kill him and ran through the rest of the house.
Right.
And I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Why isn't this on the news?
Exactly.
And then I've come to find pretty quickly after, like, buddies of mine are like, yeah, man, that's not real.
Yeah.
It was like the first time I'd ever seen a video that was
Yep.
fully made by AI and was, you know, going viral. and
You sort of
everything.
have
So,
to think about it. And sometimes you gotta go like, yeah, I know this isn't real, but it's hilarious.
Yeah. It doesn't mean I can't enjoy it, but
Yeah.
at least know the difference.
Yeah. But it's, you know, and it's thing is, like I said, people look at AI as like, now it's just clicky. Like, now people are just doing it because if they make enough of them and they can make them fast and cheap,
Mm-hmm.
they can just get clicks, and that's how people get paid.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a little bit sad to think about it that way.
Yeah.
'Cause I just want to tell my stories.
people have been throwing clickbait out there for years.
Yeah.
So this is just the newest
It
iteration.
makes it really easy to make clickbait, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even have to be that creative.
And boomers, man, boomers are the ones that are like, people's like, oh, I'm so worried about my kids being influenced by AI. It's like, your kids know. Your mom, she doesn't know.
Yeah. I met somebody this morning who said, you know, my 8-year-old knows exactly what's AI and what's not.
Yeah. And they don't like it.
Yeah. They don't.
They don't. They're very, ironically, the youngest generation is the one that basically is like, they rebel against it.
Mm-hmm.
And some,
And if it can help them do their homework, they're fine with it. But outside of that,
but it's interesting because, like, even some of them that help, like, now, some of the other kids will call out kids who use AI tools saying, you cheated.
oh, come on. I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
It was like, yeah, you're not smart enough to do it on your own.
Yeah.
Like, they literally are doing that now. It's like, you know, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. What a time to grow up. Could you imagine?
It's weird. Like, my son, all right, so he's like probably an old alpha, right?
Mhm.
In terms of that. So he's 16, but him and his friends, man, they're doing things that people said would never do, right? They're getting like their AMC Stubs pass, and they're going to the movies like 2 or 3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
to the theater.
Yeah.
They said they would never do that, right? It's the TikTok generation. They don't care. It's like, no, they actually do care, right?
Yeah.
I've got one of his buddies. Now, granted, this is LA and Hollywood, et cetera, but one of his buddies is like huge into like interesting movies. Letterbox, he's
Mhm.
on Letterbox. He's like asking me questions about, the French New Wave and
Yeah.
like, what do you, a 16-year-old, care about Breathless from 1965?
That's impressive.
You know, but he
Yeah.
does. He's like, oh, I love it. You know, my nephew in Belgium, he's the same thing. He's actually wants to come to LA to sort of experience Hollywood because he's so passionate about filmmaking. He has this massive DVD. He has a DVD collection at the age of 16.
Just for nostalgia.
No, because he wants to own it.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like if you own a physical thing, it's different than like getting it on Prime or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like collecting Pokemon.
I feel the same way because I have boxes of DVDs in our storage downstairs in the basement that I'm just hoping make a comeback, right?
Right.
Maybe one day they'll be worth something. But,
So, yeah.
you know, it's interesting you say that because I can relate to your son, and I have a 16-year-old too. And
Right.
I texted him the other day. I'm like, your next watch, since you kind of like the darker, creepier things, you should go watch Weapons.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, oh, I already saw that. And I'm like, you already saw that? And he's like, we go to the movies all the time. I see most things that are in theater. And I kind of thought back to when I was in high school.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, that kind of was like one of the things where everybody got away from their parents.
Yeah.
You went to the movies, you got to hang out, you know, for a couple hours afterwards, and which is
And I
an
don't
excuse to
think-
get out.
And the problem is the media has been telling everyone in business side that no one's going to the movies anymore. And I don't think that's true. Because like my son, again, he went with his buddies and there's an anime film that came out in theaters, right? And it was only supposed to be shown for a week, but it suddenly became the #1 film and no one understood, like Chainsaw Man, right? But like they put it out for a little bit because I guess a lot of people demanded it. And they're like, why is this #1? It's like, because you guys are not clued into what kids are watching.
Yeah.
And they all loved it, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
It is cool. I think that people are misinformed. And I think, you know, you've since you've listened to the podcast, you know, like Daniel Thron keeps making the point, like kids don't have low attention span. They just are only paying attention to things that matter to them, right? They'll play a video game for 800 hours. That's not TikTok.
Yep.
That's the opposite, right?
Right.
And so don't tell me that they can't sit down to watch a 2-hour film because they're addicted to TikTok. It's not true.
I mean, that's 100% true. 'Cause
Right.
even out of that context, you know, if I coach my son's first grade basketball team, we have a play called Wildcat. None of them have any clue what they're supposed to do. But if it's called 6-7 or Roblox or something that they think is interesting, they know exactly where they're supposed to be.
Right.
So yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. I think I actually, for the first time, I feel hopeful for this generation. I think they're going to be smarter than us.
I mean, that's the idea, right?
But I think they're going to come out of it on the other end. I think they're going to, you know, they're going to deal with a lot of other problems. They're going to have massive debt that we've given them. So that's a different problem.
Yeah.
But they're going to be smart about it. I think they're going to be the ones that are like, all right, we're going to figure this shit out because everyone else screwed it up before us, you know?
Yeah.
So I think they're going to come out of it. I think this is going to be cool for them. And honestly, you know, from the Monstrous Moonshine perspective, I'm looking at New Hollywood. I'm looking at how we're going to do things. I'm looking at how do I take my Avengers team of cool people and make a movie out of it with nothing. And I need tools like what you guys are offering to say, all right, here's how we're going to get our cloud going. Got it right here.
Yeah.
I don't need an IT guy. Don't worry about it. Eric and Ryan will take care of us, you know?
I mean, that is 100% the project we want to be
Right.
all about.
Yeah.
When,
And then at the end, I can tell my Western story, and that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, when you come to me and say, Ryan, we're going to change the way that movies are made.
Right.
I mean, maybe, but
We'll try.
we're going to try, and we're going to prove that this can work. And we think it's the smartest way
Right.
to make a movie on a budget,
Yep.
be profitable in the end. And, you know, maybe other companies will start to adopt that way of filmmaking.
As a tech person, I don't want to think about tech.
Mhm.
I've done enough of that to know that you can stuck down a rabbit hole. I want to be spending my time doing it rather than focusing on it. So if technology can get out of the way where I can keep doing what I do, that's what I want to do. And that's honestly, I'll tell you, I had to start my own AWS thing for some experiment I was doing years ago. And oh my God, for someone who is not an IT person, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was hard. I know I'm starting from scratch with nothing, but it was hard. When you guys are just like, here's your login, boom. Oh, look, there's a computer. Perfect.
There's a place and a time and a use case and a scenario for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'll keep your words. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, and honestly, and it's not just that, because, you can do that at a cost.
Sure.
But with you guys, it's actually, not only is it easy, it's actually cheaper in a lot of ways. So it's really good.
The massive difference there is that the customers of AWS that work really well typically have teams or people with expertise in-house that help with that transition.
But that means you have to be a big enough company to have a team.
Exactly.
I don't have a team. I have 5 people.
Yeah, we want to be the team. We try, even in other lines of business, we try to be extensions of the IT team as much as possible.
Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, cool. Listen, can't wait to see what more is going on. Thanks so much for coming on. And we should definitely, keep us posted as to new ideas and new projects coming up. Let us know if there are people you think we should talk to on the podcast. We'd love to have that on as well.
Yeah, sometimes I feel bad. I'm like, I text Chris like almost
feel bad.
An hour after each episode drops. I'm like, this was hilarious. You know what? You should have this person on next.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. But no, Chris, seriously, it's been an honor. You've been an awesome partner, and I appreciate the time and the ask. Thanks for having me on.
I've talked to a lot of people about you too. I was like, hey, did you meet Ryan? Because we all know each other, as you know, and they're like, he is so nice. I was like, yeah, he's super nice.
I'll have to show my mom this episode then. She's
like,
really
he is one
that.
of the nicest. It's like, he's super nice. It's like, yeah, he's from the Midwest. Of course he's nice.
I know. Have you heard me say this? There are a couple of people where I brought that up and I'm like, yeah, I spent a week in Hollywood for the first time. And when I did that, for some people, it was like I was a zoo animal. They're like, tell me about what you do. How many kids do you have? How does that work? What do you do for fun on the weekends? And
I'm sure you have fun on the weekends.
We have lots of fun. I live in a gym or on a field, usually watching one of my kids play something.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
4.
4. Okay. That's not.
4 kids, living the dream.
Yeah. That's good. That's great.
Yeah, man.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
LED screen. Pixels and passion. Our pipelines alone. 2 hosts, 1 show. On a deadline postponed.